In this episode, I chat with Amy Ennion. She is better known as Amy Swims. We talk about what water means to her, the 33.3 swim series, and of course some of the fucking cool swims she has done. Welcome to the podcast, Amy. And I know you as Amy Swims because I discovered you on Instagram. I wondered if you could just briefly introduce yourself and maybe just talk about how you got swimming.
Yeah, and thanks for having me, Dave. I mean, I think a lot of people know me as Amy Swims. I introduced myself on a video the other day as, my name's Amy, you might know me as Amy Swims, and all of the comments were like, yeah, that's your name. Of course, that's how we know you. So I'm Amy Ennion. I am an open water ultramarathon swimmer. I've been swimming kind of ultramarathons and long distances for nearly 10 years now, for going on towards a decade. And I started out a lot earlier in my life. I've always swum, always been more of a pool swimmer. I did a lot of pool swimming, a lot of playing water polo, and I just started to get a bit disillusioned with it, a little bit bored of it. So I started entering open water swims, I think in the same way that a lot of people do. I entered my first 3K and then my first 5K and did my first 10. I had to shed the wetsuit at that point because the water was like 25 degrees. But my goodness, when they told us on the day at registration that it was going to be non-wetsuit, I was terrified. I hadn't done any training non-wetsuit. But I swam more and more. I just found this absolute love for the open water, for swimming without lanes, without, a lane rope or a line on the bottom of the pool tiles that you're following. I just like being outside in nature and being able to get into that rhythm of just concentrating on your stroke and seeing everything around you. And so, yeah, I did my first 10K, got to the end of that, and I was like, I think I can do longer than that. Signed up for Windermere, got to the end of Windermere. I was like, I still think I could go longer than that. And that has basically been the story of my life for the last 10 years, is just getting to the end of a swim and thinking, yeah, that was good, but could I go further? And it turns out the answer just kept being yes.
Oh, amazing. Now you are the second guest I've had on the podcast, so I feel very, very privileged, and thank you. But you said to me, maybe it's worth telling people why you have sort of launched the podcast in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to know a little bit more about kind of what you're looking, why you've set it up, what you're looking to explore in swimming. I'd love to know a little bit more about you and what's driven the creation of the podcast.
Well, it's really interesting. I mean, look, I'm going to start by reading you something which you may find familiar. The timing on this is brilliant, but this was posted by someone yesterday. It says, "The water is always there for me, to challenge myself, to push my limits, to rest and relax, to bring joy, to grieve. If I've had a long day and need to forget myself, if it's been a while and I need to come back to myself, I am me in the water, and the water makes me who I am. Planet water, no lanes." And so that to me kind of sums up so much about why I'm doing this. Because to me, it's all about the water. Now, my background is, I mean, honestly, Amy, if you were in the red team and there was an orange team, I'd be in the bottom set for swimming. But I love swimming so much. Now, I was really fortunate. I grew up in Fiji, and
Oh.
yeah, so I have this love of the ocean, which,
Mhm.
is incredible, but it's love of water as well. And for many years, I sort of wandered around, not swimming, doing a bit of pool swimming, but never kind of being satisfied. And then I discovered lake swimming, and that was just like changed everything for me. Like something about getting into a lake was just magical. And so I then ended up doing a lot more wild swimming, river swimming. So I live in Henley, so I'm near the River
Mhm.
Thames. Um, and that just turned into a love affair with kind of water. Um, and here in Henley, we turns out we have terribly dirty water. So one of the things I've ended
Yeah.
up doing is campaigning for clean water. So I spend my mornings out uh, every week testing the river for E. coli, and keeping an eye on people like Thames Water, who decided that our river is a bit of a sewer. But anyway, that we're not here to talk about
Yeah.
the state of our rivers. But long story short, I ended up in Finland this year, and I did the downhill swim. And it was
Mm.
in that swim that I remembered, or I don't know, just connected with water in the way you describe it. And maybe I'm not sure I'd ever kind of connected with it in that such a magical way, but there was something about that which made me come out, and I was like, "Oh, I've just got to tell the world about this, and I've got to find other people who understand that, and that can
Mhm.
under can sort of find a way of articulating it, because we are mainly water, aren't we? We
Yeah.
are, y- you know, uh, that's what makes us up, and there's something about being in water which I think is important. But I know there's a lot of people out there who worry about things like open water swimming. And I think by talking to people like yourselves, they can be reassured. Even the fact that you sort of say, I was really nervous about taking off my wetsuit to swim,
Yeah.
it's sort of just to remind people that we all get nervous about this stuff. I also think that there's so many great events out there, but if I'm honest, these events are pretty bad at telling everybody what they're like. So that was kind of the inspiration for it. And I think having people like you to kind of talk about the magic of water, I think is kind of what this is all about.
Yeah. I mean that yeah, that just sounds brilliant. And I think it's very easy to forget, especially the way social media algorithms work when you end up in your bubble, in your echo chamber. It's very easy to think that oh, I'm feeling nervous, but no one else is feeling nervous. Everyone else must find this absolutely fine. I'm the only person that feels this way. I think, in talking about things like nerves and talking about how you develop as a swimmer, how you find these other swims, that can hopefully help to remind people that, yeah, your echo chamber might be telling you that everything is fine and hunky dory, but everyone else out there is human too.
No, and I mean, I was very reminded of that, like with the downhill swim.
Mhm.
I'll be honest, the week before it, I was like, it's 24K. There is no way. I mean, I've trained, but there's no way I could swim 24K. So I was going to bin it off. But I swim with a partner called Giles.
Mhm.
We've spent the last, I think, 20 years just doing events and doing more and more extreme events. So, following that path that you have, but maybe a bit slower, and he's like, "No, of course we're not going to bin it off because we're
Mhm.
going to do it and it's going to be fine." And it just turned out to be one of the experiences of my life. And I think
Mm.
I just think that yeah, people need to understand that, like, when you're stood on a beach ready to set off and jump in the water, everybody else is feeling nervous, but 2 or 3 strokes in and the water's taken over and you just forget all about it, don't you?
Yeah, you get into your stride, you get into your stroke, and it's I find it easy personally to just kind of relax into it. Yeah.
Well, look, I mean, the other thing that the timing is brilliant on this as well, because um, you've just swam the 33.3. Now,
Yeah.
uh, I bizarrely, I've been looking at it on Instagram before you'd swam it, thinking, "Oh, that looks like a great event," but for some reason I didn't quite understand what it was all about. So, um, because you've just swum it, I'd love to understand a bit more about it and what the setup is. So, you know, it's sort of, I got the impression, and then I read your blog as well. So thank you for the blog. But it is for everybody. It's not just for the elite ultra marathon swimmers like yourself.
No, so the premise of Ultra Swim 33.3, I believe, is that it's a step up towards the kind of ultramarathon swimming that I do. So the idea of it, the 33.3 is the distance of the English Channel, and you swim that distance cumulatively over 4 days. And depending on the event, because they run events all around Europe, that's either over, I think it's like 5 to 7 swims. So on some days you're doing multiple swims. You might do a swim in the morning, a swim after lunch. You might do one in the morning, one late afternoon. And then on one day you do a much longer marathon swim. So that if, for I think something like half of the people that we had along to our edition in Montenegro, that marathon swim was the furthest that they'd ever swum. That was the first time they'd swum that distance. So you're not really ever doing a massive, massive swim in one go. You're doing kind of 4 kilometers, 5 kilometers, 6 kilometers, 2 after lunch, maybe 3. And that adds up over the weekend to the point where you can say you're a marathon swimmer, you've done that in one go, and you've achieved the distance of the English Channel over these 4 days in some stunning locations. I mean, so we were in Montenegro, the edition that I just did. Our marathon swim route that took us down the coast, they had us going in and out of Cold War era submarine pens,
Wow.
hundreds of meters deep cave tunnels just carved into the side of the mountain, and we were swimming into it. You'd see this massive expanse above you, just knowing that like they drove a submarine into here a couple of decades ago. That is wild. And then we would swim over shipwrecks, we'd swim past we'd do a couple of circumnavigations of islands. I've never explored an area from the water like that, and it was absolutely incredible. Yeah.
I mean, that again is so much, I think, part of this is like there's the act of swimming, but then there's the act of sometimes putting your head up or putting your head down and seeing what's around you. Now, on the downhill swim, that was something that they said, just every now and then look up. And
Mhm.
I did that, and I was like, "Oh my gosh," So, like, what you're saying in terms of what's around you, I think is incredible.
Yeah, and I think they were saying the same to us on Ultra Swim, that the field of swimmers that was there. Yes, there was a real pointy end at the pointy end of the race. There were some incredible swimmers there. But then towards my end of the field, I'm a very solid middle of the pack swimmer. And then kind of in the groups that were coming in behind me, it was about
Giles and Daves of this world.
yes. But, it was about taking your GoPro with you strapped to your tow float and looking around and we go into the submarine plan, they've got AC/DC blasting.
Oh my
We're
good.
all just sat there doing head up breaststroke like, "What is going on?" So, yeah, it was really about experiencing it, about kind of being there. It's not just doing the swim, it's not just hammering out the distances. You're there in a gorgeous location, seeing a view of that country, a view of the area that very, very few people are going to see. People aren't going to see that from the water. So it's just about, like you said, have a stop, stick your head up, look around, appreciate where you are. Yeah.
There's a beautiful book called Waterlogged by a chap called Roger Deakin.
Mhm.
So he was the original one of the original wild swimmers, but he talks about a frog's eye view on the world, and I think it's
Yeah.
you know, it's so important to kind of remember that it's not just about just getting the kilometers in, it's about the
Mhm.
experience as well, isn't it?
Very much so.
So, I mean, so I think with the 33.3, so they do it across, so it's not just in Montenegro. There's other ones across Europe that.
Yeah, so I don't know the race series itself super well, but I believe non-exhaustive list, I think they do Croatia, Greece, they've just had an edition in a lake in Switzerland, in Lake Geneva, Lac
Yeah.
Leman. So yeah, they have they call them editions, swim editions, all around Europe.
No, well,
But
it's
I think they all, yeah.
sorry.
No, I was going to say, I think they all follow a very, very similar structure. In you kind of arrive on a Thursday, you register. There's a warm up swim. You've got a couple of days with two much shorter swims. You have a day with a longer swim, and then you have your kind of 4 or 5K final swim where you're celebrating. There's a party at the end. Your friends and your family can swim in the final couple of 100 meters with you. So I think the structure they've really got down to a T. I think that's the same
No,
wherever you are.
amazing. Well, I think I'll look at it for next year. It's definitely
Mm,
one that I want to do. I mean, you kind of touched on something there about kind of parties and celebrations. So every swim I've been on, there's the people are just generally amazing, you know,
mhm.
like I don't know what it is about the swimming community, but it's so much kindness and warmth and you know, like I, I've always found that the people who organize these things are brilliant as well because
Yeah.
you know they've got to keep you safe. So, but there is a brilliant community if you kind of haven't swum before,
Mm,
kind of getting involved in it, you find that there's just these awesome people who, you know,
mhm.
very happy to kind of talk to you and share their experiences with you. I mean, so it sounds like 33.3 is no exception to the rule.
Definitely not an exception. I would say they really lean into it. When you sign up, you're given the option to join a whole bunch of different WhatsApp groups. You can join a kind of generic training group where people are posting about their training, sharing hints, sharing tips. You can join a chat group that's specifically for your edition, for your swim. So it's all that you can get to know all the people you're going to be out there with, that you're going to be swimming with. You can find how they're training and even, where they are in the country if people are happy to share that. So they really do create a sense of community. And they lean into that each day as well. You have a briefing every single evening where they walk you through the logistics and the plan for the next day. And Mark, the one of the co-founders and the MD, I think, he says the same. Don't swim these swims by yourself. If you realize that you're 50 meters in front of someone, stop, wait, swim together. Find your pod, find your tribe, do it as a group, help each other through the distance. And I definitely found that. I found the group of people that all swim at about the same speed as me and sharing the experience with them. It makes it really special.
I
Yeah.
I love that. 'Cause I mean, I did the silly swims. I don't know if you've ever done the.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my gosh, sign up! It's wonderful.
I hear
Secondary,
there's jellyfish though. Is there jellyfish down that way?
wasn't this year, last year. So I've
Okay.
done it for the last 6 years actually.
Oh,
Last year there was
wow.
jellyfish, and
Mhm,
yeah, I did a lot of jellyfish avoiding, but still loved it because it was just the experience. But this year there wasn't any jellyfish at all.
mhm,
And I'm predicting next year there'll be no jellyfish. But what you
okay.
say is like we did the 2-day event, Giles and I, this year. We
Mhm,
ended up in a little pod, and gosh, I don't think I've laughed so much over the couple of days, just in terms of that shared experience that
mhm,
we had, and that we met one lady whose sister, who was in her 40s. The lady was actually there as an observer to sort of support her sister, but for some reason she came up to Giles and I and she said, "Yeah, you're looking after my sister." So we then sort of chaperoned her for the two
mhm.
days. Turns out she was the same swimming speed as us, and you know, she's in that.
Perfect.
It's so you're totally right. I think, and it just sort of like, I guess the common thread is then the swimming and the water,
Mm,
and you know, the ability to kind of have that shared experience and talk about, you know, like you know, distances is interesting. So I want to talk to you about some of the longer swims you've done. But you know, when I come out the water and I've done, like, I don't know, 3-4K, or like the 24K in Finland. I mean, I was helped by it was helped
mhm.
by the current, but I did go, bloody hell, you know, I've swam halfway from Henley to London in a river, and you know that feels quite impressive to me, you know. So
Mhm.
there's something good for the soul, I think, in terms of celebrating that the distance and the athletic prowess of it all as well, isn't it?
100%, yeah, and, I like to remind people of that, 24K, what you've just done there is 2 and a bit marathons. Like,
Yeah.
if someone rocked up at work on a Monday morning and told you they've just run 2.5 marathons, it would blow your mind, but sometimes it's easy to forget that in swimming because we're not used to that numbers comparison. You swam 2.5 marathons.
Oh
That's a
wow.
massive athletic feat.
Oh, I can't wait to tell Giles later. So, yeah, look, I mean, it's yeah, perfect, perfect. But
Mhm,
we did have the current behind us. And
mhm.
I would say, if you ever have, like anybody, if you ever have the opportunity to swim in a river with the current behind you, absolutely go for it, because there, it's a different type of swimming. It's like you really have the opportunity to kind of understand the river, be a bit more part of the river. So, you know, but you've done Windermere and Loch Ness. Now, lake
Yeah.
swimming is very different from river swimming and sea swimming, because
Mhm.
you don't have any current or any flow behind you. So it's just you and your arms and your feet. So
Yeah.
I mean, this is called fucking cool swims. Out of the long distance swims you've done, which is the fucking coolest?
The coolest has got to be Geneva. That if I'm trying to really impress someone, if I'm trying to make someone be like, "Oh, that is fucking cool," then for me that's Geneva. Being the 10th person in history to swim something, that's that's a pretty cool swim. Yeah.
So tell us about Geneva. What was the distance?
So Geneva is 69 kilometers by the shortest distance. I ended up swimming about 72. We went kind of down the middle, just to keep it a little bit warmer, try and stay away from the currents at the edge of the lake. And it took me 28 hours and 13 minutes of non-stop swimming. So started at about 8 o'clock on I think it was like a Wednesday morning, and finished at 11ish morning the next day. Yeah.
I mean, I don't even know where to begin with that. To be, I mean, I know that the Swiss lakes are very nice and clean, and but they're quite cold as well, aren't they? So,
Yes, but then, a lot of the planning that goes into a swim like this is picking, the maximum water temperature, daylight hours. I booked my Geneva slot a couple of years in advance, so I had the pick of the year. I had the pick of all the windows. So I cross-referenced water temperature, air temperature, and then chose a window that would be over a full moon so that I'd have maximum light
Okay.
overnight. So you really get to hand pick as much as possible all of the different, as much as you can, the different weather conditions.
But I mean, even so, then I mean, God, that's a long time to be in the water. So how did you prepare for that? I mean, I presume that's not, um, like I'll mention Giles again, like his preparation for the Finnish swim was playing paddle,
Mhm.
and I was like, Giles, I think we should be taking this more seriously. But I presume you didn't play paddle to get yourself cleaned up for that distance.
Not quite, not quite. So I'm self-coached. So it was really just I wrote myself out a training plan and I followed that. The strategy behind it was really no different to a plan that I might set for an English channel or very similar to what I did for my Loch Ness. And it's really, you do some pool swimming to try and maintain your speed and improve the strength in your shoulders. And then you do a lot of long swims. So for Geneva, my longest training weekends would be kind of 3 to 4 hours on a Friday, and then 8 to 10 hours on a Saturday, and 8 to 10 hours on a Sunday. And I do that for a couple of weekends to get used to that volume, to get used to that build up.
So, and are you doing that on your own, or have you got support, or are you swimming with other people as part of that, or?
Pretty Not quite on my own, not quite with people. I would go to a local lake that we've got over in Kent. I'd go to Leybourne, and I'd get in. They'd let me sneak in a little couple of hours before opening. So I'd get in, and then it's a 1.4 kilometer loop. So basically, I would swim a loop. I'd come back into the start. I might see some friends, see some people who you see at the lake there weekend in, weekend out. So I might stop and swim with them for a bit. So it wasn't with people, but I wasn't lonely. Like
Okay.
you'd do a lap or two laps with someone and then they'd drop off, do a lap or two laps with someone else. My partner would finish his run, come and do a couple of laps with me. So it was, when you're there for 8 or 10 hours, no one really wants to do the whole thing with
Yeah.
you, unfortunately.
No, no. But it's nice though that you've kind of got people dipping in and out, and I bet they
Mm.
felt, like they're part of your whole experience as well, because
I hope so. I hope so, because they definitely helped to make the training
oh,
bearable.
they'd have
Yeah.
so much been down the pub saying, "Oh yeah, we've been helping Amy train," and
Yeah. She couldn't do it
claiming
without
the
us.
credit. Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I definitely would as well, but,
Mhm.
no, well, that's incredible. I mean, then, basics like things like nutrition, I mean, I presume part of it in terms of having a slot is a support vessel or
Yep, yeah, so it's very similar to English Channel swimming. So you have a boat alongside you. I have my support crew on the boat, and for feeding, for nutrition, they throw me a bottle or throw me a Tupperware of stuff every 30 minutes. So yeah,
and
they're alongside me the whole time.
and as someone who, I've swum distances, but nothing like that, and, when I think about some of the distances I have swum, there's a moment where you go, "Oh my god, what the fuck am I doing in the water?" And and then it sort of very quickly passes. And then, one of the things I've been trying to do is to remember to think about the water,
Mhm.
and to stick my head up. And, and I found just sort of being, a bit more present when you're swimming has been really useful. But I just wondered, like, when you're swimming so far, what's going through your head, So,
Honestly, little bits of everything, because for that amount of time, for 24, 28 hours, it can't be one thing. I try to spend a lot of time focusing on my technique, which I think kind of sounds similar. Is like if I'm focusing on my catch, then I'm focusing on the feel for the water
Yes,
and making sure that my body position's in the right place, that I can feel the water moving past me. And that will help me to kind of find that flow state, getting to a little bit more of a meditative state in a swim. So I try to spend quite a bit of time thinking about my technique. When I get bored of that and that fails, then I'll like sing songs in my head. I'll sing albums, sing musicals, play the alphabet game a lot. Like you pick a topic, try and name something A, B, C, D, E, F, G, beginning well from that topic. And then all else fails, I kind of watch what's going on the boat next to me. We spoke kind of about the community around a swim and finding people to swim with, which can get very difficult on a long swim. It can feel quite lonely. So I find if I'm making a real effort to watch what's going on the boat, to kind of see everyone moving around, watch their faces, watch their expressions, I feel a lot more involved in what's going on. It's like it's just enough human interaction to kind of keep you going for a little bit longer.
I really love that. I love that whole idea. I mean, I know it's so interesting because I've kind of got this theory that swimming is meditative, but in a way that is not like running. Like running, you can just run down the road and you can switch off. Like swimming, you've got to have part of your brain thinking about what you're doing the whole time, and then the rest of it can go off and watch what's going on the boat and think about technique. But there's
Yes.
something which got because as soon as you enter that sort of complete flow state, you end up kind of like, well, I do. I end up in a completely wrong place. You sort of
Oh,
veer
no.
when you go, oh my god, now I'm
Mhm.
doing 75 kilometers, not 73. There's something like and I think it's one of the real strengths of swimming is it involves your brain more than you kind of realize.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, so I think I think it's fascinating because I've
Mhm.
always wondered what do people think about when they're doing long distance
Yeah.
swims.
I mean, and then on the more kind of accessible end of the scale, for people who might be listening and maybe don't want to do 28 hours,
No.
the you can access that kind of active meditation. You can access that in 45 minutes or an hour. That's what really helps me to switch off or to calm down after work is the focus. The way I describe it is like you're focusing on right arm, left arm, breathe out. Right arm, left arm, breathe out. And that leaves very, very little room in your head for, "Well, Mabel said this in a meeting, it really irritated me. Bloody Asda swapped out my feta for low-fat Greek cheese." Like,
Yeah,
there's no
bloody
room for
hell.
that. There's only room for right arm, left arm, breathe out. It's
And it kind of
it's
clears out
really
your head, doesn't it? Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, it narrows everything down. I've never been someone who's been able to actually relax doing something like yoga. I do a yoga class and they get to that bit at the end of the class where they're like, and now we're going to lie down on our mats and we're going to turn the lights out and we're just going to breathe and it will be so relaxing. And I'm lying there like, I could be doing so many more useful and productive things right now. I don't get that in swimming. It
No,
relaxes me like nothing else.
well, is it? I mean, at the tender age of 55, been diagnosed with ADHD. So
Oh,
y
really?
yeah, and one of the problems I have is that internal dialogue, and I think one of the reasons I love the water is exactly what you're talking about, is you
Mm,
shut your brain up, because
mhm,
it's sort of constantly there chattering away to me. And then when you're swimming, and I mean, it is really interesting because this year, because I was doing the Finnish swim and then I was doing the silly swim, I actually really focused on training.
mhm,
And I'll be honest, before that, I haven't really focused on training. And I, I, I go to a Lido in Reading, and there's a sauna, and
mhm,
I was chatting to a lady, and I explaining about the Finnish swim, and she said, "Well, look, I'm training for an Ironman," and she said, "My regime for the next few months is going to be short, fast swim, medium, sort of mid-pace swim, and then a long swim, and I'll do that every week." And my swimming just improved more than I can imagine just by rigidly sticking to that. Um, and then when it came to the swims themselves, I was sort of like, I was able then to think about I just it was a different experience. And that was one of the things I think is, I know it sounds ridiculous, but if you are going to do a swim, training for it is not a bad idea. Um, you know, and
yeah.
I'm saying that to there's a bunch of people out there who won't kind of know what that kind of means. And I think, as I say, if it, I really, for me, it worked like short, medium,
Mhm,
long swim, and then I tried to be very for the short swim. I tried to be as fast as I possibly could, and the just focusing on my catch as well.
yeah.
So I mean, there's two. Like, I'm a man, I can't focus on everything. I can't kick my legs, and but it's just focusing on the catch. That's all I did, and arms a bit wider apart, and that really
Mhm,
worked for me. So,
yeah. And I think that that sounds very similar to the kind of training plans that I set a lot of my swimmers, is like a little bit of focus on the shorter, faster stuff, a little bit of focus on longer intervals, a long outdoor swim. Yeah. You
no,
got the formula.
indeed, indeed. And so I wanted to also to talk about your Loch Ness swim, because you
Mhm.
were raising money for bowel cancer, and I think
Yeah.
your fundraising page, is it still open? I
It
hope
is
so.
for the next 7 days. I can probably extend that. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I was very taken by that as well, because I've known few people close to me who've actually got bowel cancer. And
Really.
so I just wondered if you could just talk a bit about, like, the swim, and then why you were raising money for bowel cancer.
Mhm. Yeah. So I mean, I'll start with the why, because that kind of leads into the why of the swim as well. My late father was diagnosed with bowel cancer. I think back in 2010, 2011. Um, no, it was going into my A levels. I was 17, so maybe a little bit before then. Um, and yeah, he was diagnosed quite late. He was diagnosed at quite a late stage. He fought it for 11 years,
Wow.
but we lost him in just after Christmas, 2021. Um, and he was really the reason I started swimming. He got both me and my sister into swimming. He and my mum were incredibly keen sailors. Through our childhood, we would spend like all weekends through the summer on a boat, and that we had a yacht, we had dinghies when we were younger. So we started swimming really as a life skill for safety. Um, but he loved swimming as well, so he'd take me and my sister when we were tiny. We lived in Australia for a little while. He taught us to body surf, taught us to boogie board. Um, all of my earliest memories of swimming are in the water with him. So when I started getting a bit more into long distance swimming, with his experience in tides and currents and knowing the water and knowing the weather. He helped me to plan a lot of my swims. So in that year, in 2021, I had my English Channel coming up, and he kind of helped talk me through a lot of what the currents were going to do and how to swim with it. And he helped me to plan my Guernsey to France swim in that June, which was a world first swim from Guernsey in the Channel Islands to France, about
Wow.
34 miles. And again, it was it was using his knowledge of the water, using all of his years of experience. And I think doing Geneva, doing Geneva the next couple of years was really, really special. It was a huge challenge. It was a gorgeous lake, but it felt very removed from him and removed from the memory of him, because we'd never been there before. He'd never been there before. He hadn't helped me plan it. It was never anything that we had talked about. So when I was looking for a new challenge, I I wanted something that would take me back towards his memory. And he and my mum had holidayed on the Caledonian Canal a couple of times. I'd seen all of these photos of him on boats up at Loch Ness. I'd seen all the photos of him at the castles around there and on the canal. And I was like, yep, that's it. That's the one. That's the
Wow.
one. So I booked it. We spent a week up there holidaying, and it meant that like I could go to all of those places where he had been. I've got a little cruising the Calais Canal
Oh,
photo album that my mum had made me with
oh,
all photos of him up at the same place. So like I could go to all the places he had been and feel closer to him. So yeah, so I still raise money for Bowel Cancer UK. They were they helped him through his diagnosis. They helped my mum as she was caring for him. They helped me in my kind of grieving and bereavement before and after. So it's nice to be able to give something back to them. Yeah.
I know. I think that's incredible. I mean, you mentioned in your post about grief as well. Um, yeah,
Yeah. Ah, yeah.
it's really because when I swim for my mum
Mhm.
because she, yeah. When I lived in Fiji, we used to do these incredible things,
Mm.
and I don't know. There's something about being in the water which brings me to her, and I always
Mm.
say I'm swimming for her as well because I just think she'd have loved the fact that I swam down a
Yeah.
river in Finland, because she was very outdoorsy. So I was actually really touched by your story about your dad and the closeness. And
Mm.
I'm sorry, it always. So I mean, I raised money for Sue Ryder this year when I did the Finnish swim
Oh,
because
yes.
exactly the same reason. Like they were incredible when my mum was dying, and they
Mhm.
then looked after my mother-in-law, and then they helped Giles's mother-in-law as well this year. And I think there's something again about water which reminds us about
Mhm.
I don't know our mortality and helps us through
Yeah.
grief and things like that. So I really appreciate you talking about your dad as well. But
Thanks.
s-
Yeah.
so let's
I
look
think
forward.
yeah.
Sorry, you were going to
No,
say.
yeah, I was going to say, I think in the same way that you can kind of say the water is meditative, it helps me with processing. There's sometimes when maybe I don't want to confront those feelings on land. Maybe I might shy away from it, or I might almost procrastinate feeling it. But you can process that in the water. You're surrounded, you're supported, you can be with people, you can be just with your own mind, with your own space. So Yeah, there's a big element of the water being what I think my dad and I shared, but there's a big element of using it as a tool to process that grief as well.
No, well, that's what the water is there for, I think, as well.
Mhm.
So, what's next for you? Just sort of looking forward. Have you got any massive swims? Are you tempted by
So
UK to America, first swim across the Atlantic?
can you imagine?
Well,
Not
there are
quite.
many people who could do it, but I reckon you probably could, so.
Yeah. So, so my partner and I do this thing where we alternate big years. So I had a big year this year. We did my Loch Ness swim. He kind of ramps down a lot of his sporting things to support me and whatever I want to do. Next year is his big year. So I ramp down my events a little bit and I support him for a year. And you can see that in all of my events. So I kind of did English Channel, and then I did Windermere, and then I did Geneva, and then what did I even do after Geneva? I think I just did Windermere again. So I do a big year and a little year. So next year is a little year for me. Um, and I think we will have announced this by the time the podcast likely goes live. I'm going to be the ambassador for Le Flot de Gabourier, which is a 34-kilometer river swim in France, in the
Wow.
Charente. So I'll be going down to that at the end of June. So exactly like you said, I'm very, very excited to have that little bit of current with me, really feel the river as we move through. I think we start in Charente and we end in Cognac, and it goes through what looks like some gorgeous, gorgeous French countryside on the way. So that is going to be my swim at the beginning of next year, and then we're getting married towards the end of next year. So we'll probably
Congratulations. Congrats.
thank you. We've managed to find a venue that has an outdoor pool,
Oh,
which
well,
I
there you go.
convinced Will to book because I promised that I would spend time with him on our wedding day and not just spend time in the pool. But we'll see. We will see about
Why don't
that.
you just get married in the pool, to be honest with you?
That's what I tried to say, but
Yeah.
I don't know, it's not going across. He's a triathlete, so he doesn't really like the water. So I need to work on my sales pitch there.
God. I mean, I've done triathlons. They're not all that. The best bit was always swimming. So,
Have you got anything lined up for next year?
um, other than the sillies, nothing. So, I mean,
Mhm,
you've just mentioned a swim which has really caught my attention. So the river swim in France sounds awesome. So I'll look into that.
mhm. Yeah.
But I'm very tempted by one of the 33 threes, to be honest with you. I
Mm.
think they sound awesome. I'm also in a month's time, I'm going swimming with whales as well. So I'm off to a place called Timor-Leste, which is just north of Australia, to swim with blue whales. So I'm thinking that would be
What?
a fucking cool swim. So
That's gonna be fucking cool. What?
yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
I can't wait to hear all about that. Yeah, you'll be living out my dream.
yeah. Well,
Wow.
yes, I'm so looking forward to it. So I hope we get to see some whales. But if we don't, I don't mind as well.
Mhm.
Tropical ocean, and
Yeah.
that's my home, to be honest. So anyway, listen, thank you so much. And if you listen to this and you don't follow Amy, she is just Amy Swims. It's a very rewarding experience, I can promise you. If you want to find out about ultra marathons and long distances, but also Amy does post a bit more about techniques occasionally,
Mhm.
and so I think it's worth following her. And obviously with us, we're on Instagram as fucking cool swims. Um, so follow us as well. But thank you so much, Amy, for joining. I really, I mean, I just feel like we've had a great blessed conversation, and
I think
it,
so. Like I feel like we've jumped between a couple of different fucking cool swims, but I think we've covered it. I think we have. That
yeah,
was really, really great. Thank you so much for having me, Dave.
my pleasure.